So the other day, I was looking at my own tax return. You know that feeling when you see how much of your hard-earned money is just gone. You look at that line item and you think, man, if I just had that 20% or 30% back, I could actually fix that roof or finally take that vacation. But then you look at the news and you see billionaires buying yachts the size of small islands, flying private jets to get to a specific type of coffee, and living these lives that don't even seem real. And you wonder, how? If I'm losing a third of my paycheck to the government, how are they doing all of this? Well, it's a strategy that sounds like a dark joke, but it's actually the cornerstone of how the ultra wealthy stay ultra wealthy, and it's called buy, borrow, die. Now, before you think this is some illegal offshore accounts in the Cayman Island kind of stuff, it's not. It's perfectly legal. It's been sitting right there in the tax code for over 100 years, hiding in plain sight. It's not a loophole in the way people usually mean it. It's actually how the system was designed to work for the people who helped design it. I'm not here to give you a get rich quick scheme because honestly, to pull this off effectively, you already need to have a lot of money. But I think it's important we pull back the curtain because once you realize how the game is actually played, you realize that you and I are playing a completely different sport on a completely different field. So let's start with the origin story. This whole concept was actually named by a law professor named Edward McCaffrey back in the 90s. He wasn't trying to write a how-to guide for billionaires. It was actually trying to show how unfair the system is. He thought if he gave it a catchy, slightly grim name like buy, borrow, and die, people would realize how ridiculous the tax code had become. For a long time, the experts ignored him. They said it was too simple and it couldn't possibly be that easy to avoid taxes. But then a few years ago, a massive leak of IRS data proved him right. It showed that some of the richest people on the planet were paying an effective rate of, well, basically nothing, sometimes less than 1%. Think about that. If you make $50,000 per year, you're likely paying way more in taxes than someone worth $50 billion. It's not because they are cheating, it's because they are following the rules of a game most of us weren't invited to play. So let's look at the first part, the buy. Imagine you have a choice. You can either take a job that pays you $1 million in salary, or you can own $1 million worth of company that doesn't pay you a dime, but grows in value. Most people will take that salary. Why? Because we have bills. We need cash to buy groceries and pay the mortgage. But here's the trap. The moment that $1 million hits your bank account as a salary, the government takes their cut. Depending on where you live, you might only see half of it. The wealthy do the opposite. They avoid income like it's the plague. Instead, they focus on buying things that grow in value but don't pay out cash. We're talking about stocks that don't pay dividends, high-end real estate, rare art, or private companies. Imagine you bought a painting for $1 million. 5 years later, that painting is worth $5 million. On paper, you are $4 million richer. But guess how much tax you owe on that $4 million gain? Zero. Because you haven't sold it. In the eyes of the taxman, that profit does not exist. It's an unrealized gain. You can sit on that painting for 40 years, watch it grow to $50 million, and as long as you don't sell it, you don't owe a single cent in capital gains tax. While you and I are working for taxable dollars, the wealthy are letting their wealth grow in a tax-free bubble. It's like they're running a race where they don't even have to carry any weights, while we are running the same race with a backpack full of bricks. And if this is making sense so far, you're probably gonna like what I talk about on this channel. I'm trying to decode these systems that keep the average person stuck while the top 1% just keep floating higher. If you wanna keep peeling back these layers with me, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. It helps me reach out to more people who are tired of being left in the dark. Next, let's move on to the borrow. So if you're a billionaire and all your money is tied up in the stuff that you can't sell without being taxed, so how do you buy your groceries or your third mansion? That's where the borrow part comes in. Imagine you have $10 million in stock. You want to buy $2 million worth of a house. If you sell $2 million of your stocks, you might have to pay half of it in taxes. That's a huge waste of money, right? Instead, you go to a bank, you tell them that, hey, I have $10 million worth of stocks. Use that as collateral and just lend me that $2 million. The bank says, sure, you're rich, we trust you. They give you the $2 million at a very low interest, maybe like at 2%. Now, here's the magic trick. Debt is not taxable. When the bank puts that $2 million in your account, the IRS does not see it as income. It's a loan. So you get $2 million in cash to spend on whatever you want and you pay zero taxes on it. But wait, Don't you have to pay the loan back? Well, yes, eventually. But remember, you have $10 million in stocks. If the stock market grows by even 7% every year, your portfolio is growing faster than the interest on your loan. You are literally living off borrowed money while your actual wealth grows in the background. It's a positive spread. You're paying the bank, let's say 3% to use their money, but your own money is making about 7%. You're getting richer by being in debt. For a normal person, debt is a trap. It's high interest credit cards and predator car loans. For the ultra wealthy people, debt is a tool. It's a way to access cash without ever having to trigger a taxable event. They just keep rolling the loans over, borrowing more as their assets grow more. It's a perpetual motion machine of money. You buy the asset, you borrow against it to live, and you never ever sell. Now you're probably thinking, okay, eventually they have to die, right? Surely the government gets them then. That's where the final piece of puzzle comes in, the die. In the normal world, death and taxes are the only two certainties. In the billionaire world, death is actually the best tax planning tool there is. It all comes down to something called stepped up basis. Let's walk through a scenario. Imagine you bought a bunch of tech stocks decades ago for $1 million. By the time you're old, those stocks are worth now $100 million. You have spent your whole life borrowing against them. So you owe bank, let's say, $30 million. If you sold those stocks the day before you die, you would owe a massive fortune in capital gains. But if you die holding them, the cost basis, the price that government uses to calculate tax, is stepped up to the current market value. So when your kids inherit that $100 million in stocks, the government acts like they bought it for $100 million today. All that growth from $1 million to $100 million, it just vanishes. It's never taxed. Not a single cent of that $99 million profit is ever touched by the IRS. Your kids can then sell $30 million worth of the stocks to pay off the loans you took out during your life because the basis was stepped up to the current price. They pay zero capital gains tax on that sale. They pay off the bank, they keep the remaining $70 million, and the cycle starts all over again. The wealth is preserved perfectly, passing from one generation to the next, while the taxman stands outside with an empty bag. It's the ultimate reset button. It turns what should be a massive tax bill into a tax-free inheritance. This is how dynastic wealth is built. It's why you see families that have been rich for 100 years staying rich, regardless of how the economy is doing. Now, let's talk about the market distortion. This is not just about people saving money. This strategy actually changes how the entire market works. Think about it. If the richest people in the world are incentivized to never sell, what does that do to the supply of the assets? It makes them scarce. Whether it's the prime real estate in New York or shares of the biggest companies, a huge chunk of the world's wealth is basically locked away in these buy, borrow, die vaults. Because they never sell, the prices of these assets stay artificially high. This makes it even harder for regular people, the workers who are paying 30% in taxes, to ever afford to buy into those same assets. The system is essentially rewarding people for hoarding wealth and punishing people for trying to build it from scratch. And then you have the banks. There is a massive industry of wealth management that exists solely to facilitate these loans. They don't call it tax avoidance. They call it tax-efficient liquidity or asset-backed lending. It sounds very professional and sophisticated, but at its core, it's just helping people opt out of the social contract. Now, some people will hear this and say, hey, they own the assets. They should be able to do what they want. It's their money. Others will look at this and say it's total betrayal of the middle class, especially when our infrastructure is crumbling and schools are underfunded. So let me know where you land on this. Is buy, borrow, die just smart financial planning that anyone would do if they could, or is it a fundamental flaw in the system that needs to be fixed? And let's move on to the systematic trap. The truth is, we spend so much time arguing about whether the income tax rate should be 30% or 35%. We have these massive political battles over 5% change in the tax bracket. But for the people at the very top, that debate is completely irrelevant. You can raise the income tax to 90% and it wouldn't touch a billionaire using the buy, borrow, die strategy. Why? Because they don't have the income, they have assets. As long as we tax work more heavily than we tax wealth, this gap is only going to get wider. It's a bit of heavy realization, isn't it? We are told that if we work hard, save our pennies, and we pay our fair share, we'll get ahead. And technically, you can. You can build a great life that way. But you're playing by the standard rules. The premium rules are different. They allow you to grow wealth without friction, spend money without taxes, and pass it on without loss. So the next time you see a headline about billionaires' net worth jumping by $10 billion in a single month, remember, they're not looking at it as a paycheck. They're looking at it as a new credit limit. They aren't thinking about how much of that they'll have to give to the government. They're just thinking about how they can use that growth to borrow more, buy more, and eventually leave it all to someone else untouched. It makes you realize that the economy is not just one big machine, it's two. One machine runs on your sweat and your taxes, the other machine runs on assets and debt. Most of us are stuck in the first machine, wondering why we are so tired. Meanwhile, the people in the second machine are wondering why we haven't figured out the secret yet. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's just that the rules were never meant to be the same for everyone. Think about it the next time you look at your pay stub. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the next one.